What is up, guys? Mike Merlinski here with the Metal Webzine. Welcome to episode 44 of All the Metal Podcast. This is going to be part 8 of our Black Sabbath series. We're going to be covering Never Say Die. Obviously, this is a very significant album in the band's history. It's Ozzy's last album with the band, at least until 2013's 13, the conclusion of the Black Sabbath discography. So, Never Say Die is an interesting album because Ozzy was sacked shortly after by his bandmates for substance abuse. Prior to that happening, Ozzy briefly quit the band and was replaced by Dave Walker from Fleetwood Mac, and they ended up reworking. When Ozzy came back to the band, they never wanted him to leave in the first place, but when Ozzy ended up coming back, obviously he didn't want to sing over those Dave Walker songs, so they had to rework a lot of that music, songs like Junior's Eyes and Breakout, which became an instrumental and things like that. So that's pretty much what this is going to be about. Bill Page from Wrong the Oppressor and I are going to be dissecting this album song for song. It's such a significant album and turning point in the band's history. We're also going to be doing a comparative analysis between Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die, just because, again, this is such a significant point, and it's worth, having a technical, pun intended, discussion like this about both albums prior to the changing of the guard, since we'll be talking Dio and Heaven and Hell on the next episode. So this will be us closing out the Ozzy era. Always a pleasure to have Bill on the show. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you enjoy this.
Hello.
Well, hello. Don't you sound better? Sounds good. How goes it?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Despite all this mass confusion and mass hysteria and this COVID fallout and the rest of the world kind of making fun of us, as they should be. So we are doing Never Say Die, and I guess we're going to partly do Technical Ecstasy as well, just because it's such a significant turning point of the band. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
He's ready! Alright, been looking forward to this, man. Okay, so, do you find this album to be as unbalanced as the critics say? I found a lot of consistent artistic choices on this album, like spacey guitar effects and piano jazz interludes and fade-outs and simpler guitar solos with more bends and sustained notes. So, I guess, is it as unbalanced as the critics say? And even if it is that a negative? And we're also going to kind of discuss Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die comparatively. So, go ahead.
I don't think it's unbalanced. It is, I think, their most diverse-sounding record, but it all comes together well. I think regardless of anybody's criticism of any Black Sabbath record, you can say they all flow well.
Right.
And these songs, even though they're all very different sounding, and it's definitely not the heavy Black Sabbath we're used to, it's a good flowing album, and they make it work.
Yeah. So many interesting, instrumental choices and artistic choices on this, and there are a lot of things that I like about this album that I don't even know if they were conscious decisions on the band's part. And I guess if I scoured the internet long enough, I could figure that out. But I don't know. Art is subjective, and I agree with you. I find this album to just be so interesting that I can't dislike anything about it, even if it wasn't necessarily what I was expecting the first time I heard it. So I love Bill Ward on vocals for Swinging the Chain. And I think it's ironic that the last track on Ozzy's last album was sung by Bill. I mean, Ozzy refused to... When I did the intro for this, before calling you, I did a little intro, and I talked about Dave Walker a bit, and Ozzy refusing to sing on songs and stuff like that. So how do you like? I mean, I guess we're going to be talking about "It's All Right" from Technical Ecstasy when I ask this as well. But how do you like Bill's vocals on this song and in general?
I love Bill Ward's vocals. I'm a huge fan of his solo work he did later on too. Like he did three albums later on, and as the second one I'm not as into, but Ward One Along the Way and Accountable Beasts are fucking phenomenal records. Even though Ward One, he kind of he does some vocals and has some guest vocals, including Ozzy. But him singing on that song is, it's really, I think it's a lot better than the song he sings on Technical Ecstasy. But I like this album more too, but I have a theory about that with Technical Ecstasy, which we can get into later. But one thing that, while we're talking about this song, that I find really interesting, and it's always kind of bugged me, and you might have hit it about how it might have been an unconscious choice of the band. I think this song could be a great example. Right. Because even though by the time I heard this album, I knew that this was Ozzy's last album with them. I knew that he toured this album with them before, like he wasn't even discharged from the band till they were getting ready to work on the next album. Right. But to me, the lyrics to that song sound like a goodbye to Ozzy.
Yeah. And I mean, he talks about what a terrible state we're in, and, you could be talking about society, you could be talking about the band and internalizing that. Yeah, it's really interesting.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You still there?
Yeah.
Okay, no. Yeah, it's just like the whole premise of it. It's just like, it's like they knew the writing was on the wall.
Yep, totally. Well, because I think he had already left and come back at that point, because of the substance abuse. And the first time he was gone, when he left on his own accord, they didn't want him to leave, but it just led to other things. I think I was actually going to ask you about more stuff with Bill Ward on vocals, because I haven't heard any Ward solo stuff, anything, ever in my life. So if you could recommend some of that specifically, I'll listen to some songs for sure.
Well, the latest one was in 2015. He did an album called Accountable Beasts, and that's all him on vocals. Right. It's a really fucking good album. It's like, it just kind of came out of nowhere. I remember him on social media talking about it, and him stating he made it to be a headphone album. Sure. So you should listen to it with headphones on. Right. And it's just it's pretty straightforward and heavy, which, I mean, it's really good songwriting, even though, oddly enough, the only disappointing thing I found about it was that it was so straightforward and heavy. Because his first solo album from the 90s, Ward One Along the Way, is a very diverse album. It's really not too far off. It could easily be compared to Never Say Die, and how diverse the songs are. Yep. And again, he doesn't sing on all the songs. He has Ozzy sing on a couple songs. There's a couple other guest vocalists. I can't remember who they are off the top of my head. But again, it's just a really fucking solid record of diverse songwriting. And at that point, it's even more diverse because he didn't have anyone to, he wasn't in Sabbath. He was, he didn't really, it sounds like he wasn't even trying to cater to anybody. It's just this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm putting out. Right. He didn't have a vehicle to lean on, and at the same time, you're right, he wasn't trying to carry anyone, or vice versa. So that's Accountable Beasts. Is that what you said? That's Accountable Beasts was the last one.
Is the 2015 one, the 2015 one that's straightforward and heavy, but the other one came out in the 90s. Yeah, I gotta check them both out, because I haven't heard any of that, but I love his vocals, and obviously I love his drumming, so I just think he's a very talented individual, and I'm kicking myself that I just never took the time. I've never dissected these musicians so much prior to this series, because I just really wanted to get into Sabbath, and now I'm unlocking all these doors that I never gave the time of day before, and it sucked, because I feel like I cheated myself for a long time.
Yeah, there's another Ward album between those two. That one I'm not really as into, but it's not bad. it could be something I could revisit and think completely different about it, though.
Right. What's the second one called?
Honestly, I don't even remember.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I can pull it up really quick. I closed my iTunes, but let me pull it up on my phone and see. Ooh, awkward silence. Okay. It is called When the Bow Breaks.
Gotcha.
That one came out in 1997.
Gotcha.
So there's a long time between all of his albums. So
Gotcha.
it must be something he just does when he feels like inspired to do something.
Right. All right, cool. Good information for sure, because I'm going to fucking check them all out regardless. All right, so getting back to Never Say Die, I think Breakout works great as an instrumental. That's another one Ozzy refused to sing on, so it ended up being an instrumental, but I thought the end result was fantastic. And like I guess your opinion on Breakout, and then like since we're talking about instrumentals, and like this album is loaded with really cool interludes, like what's your opinion of Breakout, and then like what's your favorite instrumental or interlude section on the album?
Well, Breakout's the only song I have a complaint about.
Okay.
And
let's hear it.
Is that I think it's too short.
It is too short.
I think it's a fucking great track, and I think they easily could have made that a 5-minute song and have it not get boring for a second.
That's right. That's right. Because there's a really cool jazz interlude where the time signature abruptly changes in Air Dance. And I think like because of the nature of Breakout, like what Breakout became, like they could have done something cool like that and definitely doubled the length of the song.
Yeah.
Took it in a couple cool directions.
Yeah, Air Dance, that part's another part that I thought was a great musical direction. It's just like suddenly Black Sabbath decides we want to sound like Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Right.
And it works. It's if you said that to me, I'd be like, that fucking sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's just so good when they do it. When that part comes in that song, it's just like, wow, I shouldn't like this as much as I do because it's on a Black Sabbath album.
Yeah, Never Say Die is really an adventure. Like, it's a cool album to just sit back and relax and listen to. Like, you don't really have to... I mean, you can dissect it like we are right now, but at the same time, like, it's also an album that you can just sit back and not put a whole lot of thought into and just kind of let Sabbath take you on this journey and, through these peaks and valleys and these mood changes. It's really cool.
Yeah, and it's really also a good product of its time, because it sounds very 1978.
Yep.
And which is, I guess, is kind of odd because there's Black Sabbath not really sounding like themselves, but they sound like the time.
Yeah, they sound dated, especially that opening riff in the title track, the riff that starts the album. That's just classic rock. Like it's textbook. But it's dated to the period, and there are moments like that all over the record too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like to do one of these every episode, especially when we're talking about a specific band. So, your favorite song, your favorite riff, your favorite lyric, and your favorite drum passage. So I'll do mine first. So, my favorite song is Air Dance, because I like and my favorite riff is the intro riff to Air Dance. Like it's so different. It's proto-power metal to me. I love the harmonies and the fifths going on there, like the way the guitars are layered, and it just pumps me up. It puts me in a great mood. Like, it's a very uplifting section. That whole song, like, goes in a few mood shifts, though, that are interesting, too, because the verse kind of gets somber right after that really uplifting intro. It's pretty, it's almost polarized, but in a very enjoyable way. So my favorite lyric would be, we were just talking about it, it's from Swinging the Chain, and it could be about Ozzy, and it could be about the writing on the wall, and it's compare ourselves with others and cover them in sin. Oh God, what a terrible state we're in. There must be some way out of here, a compromise that's right. If we cannot work it out, we're going to have to fight. And look at what was going on in the band. And my favorite drum passage, it's a tie. So there's that jazz interlude we were talking about in Air Dance where the time signature abruptly changes. And then in the outro of track 2, Johnny Blade, Bill does all these interesting, like, builds on the downbeat and these snare rolls that kind of cue in, like, the bridge of the song. And I thought that was really interesting because it has nothing to do with the guitar. It has nothing to do with what's being played on the strings. Bill's just kind of in his own little world for the bridge of that song. But it's like the rest of the album. Like, it's all so different, but it coalesces. It comes together nicely. So, yeah, what are your favorites?
My favorite drum part would probably be Junior's Eyes.
Yeah.
I really like the drumming and the way him and Geezer go in that song.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite song on the album, but it's like if I'm thinking specifically of a drum part, that's his drumming in that song is what really comes to mind right away. My favorite song is the title track. It's after doing Sabbath Bloody Sabbath and thinking about this one, I realized that honestly I really like the Sabbath title tracks. There's no exceptions out there. That's not the case with every album, but there's quite a few of them where if you're going to ask me what my favorite song is, it's like
they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing with title tracks, and they usually open the album with them, and they're just straightforward bangers designed to sell the album to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because the song "Never Say Die" is what led me to checking it out, because I first heard that song on the Ozzy live album "Speak of the Devil."
Yep.
And I was like, oh, what album is this from, because even, again, Never Say Die is not an album that's looked on fondly by everyone. So it's not something that's really talked about a lot.
Right.
And just like everything like about that song, I love it.
Yep.
I love the lyrics to that song. I like it. It's just like you said, it's a straight up rocker, and it's just it's great. My favorite track.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And do you have favorite riffs and favorite lyrics?
I mean, I really like the lyrics to Never Say Die. I like the lyrics to Hard Road a lot.
Yep.
I mean, it's kind of like most of the songs I think have really great lyrics. The only two songs I think don't have the best, I wouldn't say like Johnny Blade and Junior's Eyes. I don't think they really have bad lyrics.
Right.
But they're telling stories that I just don't find very interesting.
Sure. Yep.
So for me, it'd be easier to narrow down to like my least favorite lyrics would probably be them. Again, I mean, they're executed pretty well, even keeping that in mind that, the stories they're telling, I don't find very interesting. But aside from that, they're still enjoyable songs. I don't really dislike the songs because of that.
Yeah, sometimes you hear something and you just don't get it. But just because you don't get it doesn't mean that, there's anything necessarily wrong with it, right?
Yeah, it's just like, it's nothing that I can, like, there's not even some semblance of it that I can relate to in any way.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like I didn't come from a bad family and I didn't fall into any kind of life of crime. So, I mean,
right. Yeah. No Johnny Blade here, right?
So I just, but,
so
and,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Guitar riffs, again, it's like one of those things where it's like, Iommi is always like, sometimes it's a tough pick for me. Again, because this album, even though I like that it's not heavy and I like what he does on it, but he's like a heavy guitar player.
Yeah.
So maybe Shockwave.
Oh, yeah.
Better, like, as far as like a real fucking good Iommi, it's probably the closest you get to that.
Yeah, that's fierce. That's a stompy song. Yeah.
But he hits it on all the leads on this, like he always does.
Yeah.
He always does everything that kind of like brings it home. Where I think if you have anything to object to, and I think I've said this about other Sabbath albums, it's like just listen to the fucking guitar playing. Like, Iommi always makes it worth your while.
And again, I don't know if this was a conscious decision on his part, but I almost feel like with lead guitar playing, he took a step back on this one because he's doing a lot of just simple melodies and sustained notes and bends and flutters and things like that, where he's kind of weaving around the bass and not consistently there all the time. but I like that because it's so different from all the other albums. And, you know, I think he's showing his versatility, and he's also giving other people a chance to shine. So I didn't mind it at all.
Yeah, I mean, he might just have been, you know, tired. It's like, this is like their 8th album.
This is album number 8, yeah. And, you know, averaging, this is 1978, right? So they're averaging at this point an album a year. But we know that in the 70s, there were a couple points where they did release more than one album in a year. So.
Yeah. So he might have just been tired and been like, I want to try something different. And that kind of brings up, this is kind of getting off the topic of that, but I think this relates to it.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things I found interesting, because, you know, this is a Black Sabbath produced album. And when I was looking at the information about Technical Ecstasy, Tony Iommi was the one on that one who took over the brunt of the production. And what made me start looking into that was in your last episode, you guys were talking about how Technical Ecstasy was like one of Ozzy's worst vocal performances. And even though that's something I normally don't like notice, it is noticeable on Technical Ecstasy.
Sure.
But the one thing one of the things about it that I thought, well, that's not, I mean, it's Ozzy's fault because he's singing.
Yeah.
But it's the producer's fault too.
Sure.
Because the producer's there to push you and not let something like that slide. So when I was looking into it, I saw that Tony Iommi reluctantly, as I saw it put, took over the major production duties on that album.
Right.
And because I've never looked at that aspect, I'm not really sure if that's the first time it happened.
Right.
And
well, that's what happened on Volume 4. Tony Iommi,
okay.
I think, produced that one, and there was a similar issue with the vocals on that one, so there is a correlation there.
Yeah, but then, you know, they say Black Sabbath produced this one.
Sure.
But I'm going to still guess that that's probably a lot more of Tony Iommi.
Oh, yeah.
But
oh, yeah.
Maybe he was focused more on that aspect of it.
Yep.
Which might, because Ozzy's vocal performance on Never Say Die is considerably better than Technical Ecstasy, which is weird because it's also his last album, and he really speaks poorly of this album.
Yep.
Like, especially, most of it probably was out of bitterness.
Right. I don't think it has as much to do with the music as the situation personally. Right.
Right. So I think, but he definitely gives a better vocal performance, and the way Iommi's guitar playing is on it, maybe it has to do with, maybe he was being a more focused producer on this album than a guitar player. Because regardless of your feelings of either album, Never Say Die, production-wise, sounds better.
Yes,
than
it does.
Ecstasy.
Yes, it does. It does.
You know, I mean, people might have their preferences of songs. I can see why someone would like Technical Ecstasy more, because even though it still does get a bit off the path of where Black Sabbath was, it also sounds closer to what they were than Never Say Die does. But just like sound-wise, this sounds better.
Yeah, seriously. Absolutely, man. And Tony Iommi, as a producer, like, it's I think there were a lot of learning curves on everyone's plate, and I think that's audible too. So if there are any inconsistencies or if anything feels unbalanced, like, overall, just across the first 8 albums, I think it was, you know, just everyone's learning curves bubbling to the surface.
Yeah.
No, but that, like, as a musician, like, I love hearing that. I love hearing bands grow. And that's something I noticed, I don't know if it had to do with the track listing or what, but it's something I noticed between Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die. Like Ozzy's vocals started weak on the first couple tracks and then got consistently better throughout the track listing. And I couldn't tell if my ears were just adjusting to him or not. But one thing I noticed across both albums is that Ozzy, to me at least, Ozzy sings better with piano than he does with guitar. And I think there's something about piano that just reins him in. But I don't know, that's subjective, you know. You could totally disagree with that. But I
never thought about it, but you could have a point, because you don't really hear any weak vocal moments on any of his solo stuff. and there's a much heavier keyboard presence on all of that.
Right. I think, especially when he has to do something that's kind of somber or a little more mellow, he finds this part of himself that just isn't present over those dirty sounding sludgy Iommi riffs. So I think it's really cool that Black Sabbath did diversify early on and bring in orchestrations and piano, and there's a horn section at the end of this album. And every time they do a shift like that or they bring in more instruments, that's more pressure on Ozzy to perform a certain way, and I think he shines with piano specifically. You were talking about, I know you're obviously, Wrong the Oppressor and your history and your musical taste above all others. Like, you're definitely a hardcore and punk guy, and I figured, like, even before you said everything you said about the title track, I knew you were going to fucking say that about the title track. Like, because I think the title track has a really generic and boring song structure, but it's so upbeat and lively that it's barely noticeable. It's one of the few pop song structured songs I've heard like this. And, like, it keeps you interested, even though it's more or less going back and forth between two riffs. But, like, it doesn't matter, because it just gets you going. It gets your blood pumping, So I knew you were gonna fucking say that, and you're absolutely right, because, like, I usually criticize songs that have a boring structure like that, but, like, something like that that's so driving and, like, gets your heart beating like that, like, it's you can't talk shit about it. So Junior's
short song helps too.
Right? Oh yeah. Junior's Eyes is obviously another reworked song that they originally worked on with Dave Walker. And I think Geezer and Bill, you brought this up already with Bill's drumming. I think Geezer and Bill really shine on this one. And critics hate it for being so empty on guitar. So you kind of already answered this. Because I was going to ask you how you felt about the revamped version of this song. But, like, it's, and you brought up Bill's drumming already. But I love the verses in this song because it's all Geezer and Bill Ward. And, like, Tony Iommi just kind of bounces in and out of it with some flutters, and that's it. So, like, talk a little bit more about that, if you could. Just, like, Junior's Eyes, as, I know it's not one of your favorites, but just for that choice.
Well, I mean, again, that speaks volumes about Iommi, too, because he knows when to step back. Like, I find it weird that anybody would criticize the song for it. I mean, I guess I can understand because, like I already said, I know Black Sabbath is a more guitar-driven band, but part of what makes it so good is the rhythm section behind him.
Yep.
And, like you said, they're shining in this song. And Iommi obviously knows that this is a great time to step back and only to put his parts in when necessary. And he puts them in the right parts, It's like it's not empty of guitar. It's there when it needs to be there. And it really works with the song. And especially where that song, being track 3 on the album, in a musical sense, like you think about, Never Say Die is just super pounding. Then we get Johnny Blade with that huge, like, keyboard. And then that's like one of the heavier songs, too. Real good driving song with the heavy keyboards, great guitar, great tempo. Then they just bring it down with Junior's Eyes. And it's one of those things that really just helps the flow of the album. They bring it down right at the right time.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
It's got a sick groove to it, too,
Yeah, great track listing. Like, I always love the track order of Sabbath albums. Like, it's always a really cool transition. Even though, one thing about this album, about midway, every song ends with a fade out. And sometimes...
yeah, that's true.
Sometimes things like that bother me, just because you hear a couple of them and you're like, don't do it again, and then they do it again. Like, and you're suddenly, like, for me, like, suddenly I'm more focused on that than the song. Like, don't fucking do it. They're doing it again. But you know what? At the same time, if you have an epic outro that warrants a fade out, you should probably do a fade out. So,
yeah,
I don't know. Okay, so Ozzy's vocals just the first couple songs. Same thing with Technical Ecstasy. Like Ozzy's vocals don't really sit well with me on this album until we get to A Hard Road, and you already brought up that song. So, and then from that point on, they're consistently better to me. But I also think that's because there are more piano passages dropping in by that point in the album. So how do you, like, if you could just elaborate a little more, like, how do you feel about A Hard Road?
Oh, again, like I said, that's one of my favorite songs on the album.
Yeah.
I've always really liked that song. It's just like, I think it's got a great flow to it. It's got good lyrics. The music's good. Like you said, I like the piano parts in it. Lyric-wise, it's a song that I can get into. Like, it's a song that, lyric-wise, songs like that have always appealed to me.
Mm-hmm.
And besides just, even though this is going to sound silly because it's more than just the song titles, but to me, this song and like Road to Nowhere from No More Tears kind of go together. And maybe it was around the time No More Tears came out, probably a little bit before that was when I was really getting into Never Say Die. I might have really been listening to it a lot more around then.
Yep.
Because of my age, when I really started buying music was around the time No Rest for the Wicked came out. And, you know, when you're a kid, you only have so much money. So
sure.
I couldn't, like, go out and just buy every Sabbath album. And I didn't have the internet to kind of, like,
pirate it, right?
Get it all in. So things like Never Say Die I got into later. So to me, I don't know, there's just, like, a lot about that song, and it was definitely one of my favorites at the time when I bought the album, and just like that time period, and just like really diving into the stuff that makes it a little more of a special song for me.
Yep. Yeah, perfect. Well said. Very well said. And I was gonna bring up Shockwave. You already brought up Shockwave, because that's another one that gets some slack that I've read on the Interslice for being too stand out. But at the same time, isn't Shockwave, yeah, it's stand out compared to the other tracks on Never Say Die, but isn't Shockwave like the heavy Sabbath that the critics wanted in the first place? Or is that song a problem because it's the only song on the album like that? So, like, I don't know. But it adds so much more flavor to the album because it's so different, and then a song like that comes on, and then the same old Sabbath is there for at least one track. So it's like a signature. It's like that song was almost like Tony Iommi signing the album. So
people don't like it because it get their hopes up.
That's right. And then what happened next? More, weird, spacey piano scales up and down, and I don't know. But
yeah, like, we're gonna get normal, and then we're gonna get really fucking weird.
Yeah, right. Totally, like, just the tip. I love that.
Yeah.
So, with the piano scales and things even getting a little dissonant on piano or off-key on piano at times, I think Over to You is a good example of that, because that is the most over-the-top. Over to You is the most over-the-top piano song on the album to me. Because that is the one where they go full-blown... I don't know who writes this stuff. I don't know about the guest musicians, or I never looked that far into it. But, like, that is just big scales. Like, hitting every note there is up and down the piano and just adding a ton of reverb and alternating with the vocals, and Ozzy's like wailing, but it sounds like he's falling off a cliff, and the piano's just kind of in its own little world. Like, there are moments in that song where everybody is doing their own thing, but somehow they still sound like a well-oiled machine, and I don't... When I listen to that song, it blows my mind, even being sober as I am. Like, I listen to that song and it blows my mind because I hear all these people on different pages, but it's all perfectly aligned at the same time, and I just don't get it. Like, how do you feel about that song?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a good song, and everything you said, looking at it from like a musical standpoint, and even with the lyric, even though I know Ozzy didn't write the lyrics, it almost sounds like him saying goodbye to Black Sabbath.
Yep.
And it's, again, that just comes up to like what you said earlier about how many unconscious things were happening during the making of this album.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Because who knows when they recorded them? Because you can record songs in a different order than you place them. But then, you take something like Over to You, an instrumental in the middle, and then Swinging the Chain with a different singer.
Yeah.
It's like, we were saying this is it.
Yeah. No, that is so incredible. That's a great... Even that, like Bill Ward doing a song on vocals, like, even that's just a great consistency between Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die. Just the fact that there is one Bill Ward song on each album. And it just, through certain events, it just kind of worked out that way. But yeah, to end, I can't stop, like, thinking about this, like, to end Ozzy's last album with a different vocalist, it's just, like... It almost makes me want to follow astrology, like that type of thing. It's just so... Yeah, what a crazy turning point. And finally, unless you had more to say about the track listing, because I know we were trying to dissect the songs, and finally, since this is Ozzy's departure, we've come to this point. What are your thoughts on the beginnings of Ozzy's solo career following Never Say Die?
Oh my god, I fucking love it, man. I love Ozzy. To this day, buy every Ozzy album the day it comes out.
Right.
Fucking Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. Holy shit, what fucking bangers. And I know everybody loves Dio, and I love Heaven and Hell, and I love Mob Rules.
Mm-hmm.
They're great albums. But if you made me pick between those two albums and Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, I'd pick Blizzard and Diary.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like... But Ozzy was me getting into metal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just hands down.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid, I saw the Bark at the Moon music video.
Yep.
And I didn't know what metal was. I would watch anything that was on MTV. And I fucking loved it. Like, everything about that really spoke to me. And actually, it ended up speaking to me a lot more, if I think about it in retrospect, because my two favorite things in the world are, like, heavy metal and horror movies.
Yep. Yep.
And that's Bark at the Moon,
That's what that video was. Great guitar work in that song, too. Like, I do love that song, and I love that song instrumentally too. The video's cool.
Oh, yeah,
and yeah, it's that wasn't my introduction to Ozzy, but I can appreciate that being someone's introduction to Ozzy and heavy metal. Like that must have been a really cool experience for you.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's what, like, MTV was, like, first on the air. I think that's probably, I could be mistaken about this, but that was probably Ozzy's first real video.
Sure.
Like, a real music video. And because things were kind of just taking off with MTV, by the time, Randy Rhoads played on 2 albums, but he died quick.
Right.
He died suddenly then, and then that's when things started. You had more bands, and they started going from pop music and playing more, more rock bands were making videos too. And, at that time, you had like Bark at the Moon, Twisted Sister, stuff like that.
Right.
And that's how, I don't want to say that's how I got into it, but it definitely planted the seeds.
Yeah, you talked about Bark at the Moon being his first real music video, and that reminded me of the video for the title track, Black Sabbath, and how, I mean, yeah, it's 1970, but just how awful that video is, or at least I think it is. Just, the way his face fades in and out, and like in accordance with the lyrics, like I could never take that video seriously. But no, that's a really good point that, you know, like you having that be your introduction to metal and like the production value of that video comparatively, like, and your love of horror movies now, like that must have had a long-lasting impression.
Yeah, and like those early Black Sabbath videos, see, stuff like that I don't really count as music videos, even though I guess they are.
Right.
Because like in the 60s and 70s there were stuff like that, but it was kind of like a different thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess, you know, technically they were music videos, but they weren't what became, even though stuff like that could easily be attributed to, like, you know, Mike Nesmith was one of the people behind the creation of MTV. Mm-hmm. And if you watch the old Monkey shows, they made music videos for, like, every episode of their TV show. But it's still kind of, and like those old Black Sabbath things are them like performing in clubs, and like you said, just like flashing images over it.
Yeah, they're more like performance videos than anything else. But you know, as the technology evolved, and you know, artists just got more in depth with their writing, like music videos started to take on separate storylines. Like, what are the lyrics talking about? Okay, so let's go back and forth between the performance and then let's act out what's happening in the lyrics. Or let's have no performance and just have something completely abstract going on with actors while the song plays. You know, it all depends.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. So, that's all I had. I mean, do you have any more that you wanted to just kind of toss in for the sake of the Ozzy era? Not just for Never Say Die, but just anything. 1970 through 1978 Black Sabbath.
I mean, like I've said countless times to countless people, I will stand behind every single Black Sabbath album. But the Ozzy era is just, you can't really compare it to anything.
Sure.
I think every album speaks for itself. You can easily be like, yeah, like even if you like didn't know off the top of your head, you can be like, well, I know these two songs weren't on the same album as each other. And it's like one of those things where from that era, I'd be tough if you were like, well, what's your favorite Sabbath album from the Ozzy era? I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Right.
I would never be able to really pick a favorite because I think there's so many great qualities about every one, and I'd be changing my mind every 5 minutes.
Sure.
After I'm talking about it, I'm like, well, what about this? And as far as Never Say Die goes, you know, I can understand why people don't like it because it doesn't fit into everything. But
right.
At the same time, as we've just discussed all the awesomeness about it, I hope anybody who doesn't like this album now goes back and listens to it and realizes what a fucking great album it is.
Right.
And it is a straight up banger no matter what. Even if it's not a metal record, it's still a great record.
Yeah, it's just so, well, I mean, even a metalhead, like, should be able to appreciate it, you know, to a point instrumentally. It's just so interesting. Like, it's just so interesting to just sit down and listen to it.
I mean, I think nowadays anybody who would listen to it, like if they were just like diving into it, even if they really like metal, I feel like the way metal and a lot of music in general is just kind of diversified and have all like taken in parts of everything. It's I think it can be appreciated more by people now, and it kind of makes more sense at the time why people might have been turned off by it, because it was new, you know?
Yeah.
It was like the Faith No More album of its time.
Yeah, sure. No, that's a great comparison. That's a great, yeah. Did not think of it that way. Very cool. Yeah. Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, I think my favorite of the Ozzy era would be Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Like if I were to listen to it straight through, it would be Master of Reality or Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, but it's probably Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I just love every single one of those songs just so much more than, like, the other Ozzy albums from Sabbath. Right. But, like, none of it's bad. You know, like, I say what you say in conversation about Sabbath. Like, there's no Sabbath album I hate or, like, cannot listen to, you know? Like, I can listen to all of it. For sure.
Yeah, but, like, even with the different eras of Sabbath, though, it's like I said, like, I can't pick a favorite of the Ozzy era, but all the other eras of Sabbath, well, I mean, I guess technically there would really only be two other eras, because there were two albums which each had different singers, and then, you know, you have the
Dio and Tony Martin.
And Tony Martin, they were the only other two consistent Sabbath singers.
Yeah.
And I can definitely pick favorites of those.
Sure.
Again, not that any of it's bad.
Yeah.
But to me, like, those, like, between those two singers, I can have to be like, well, I like this Dio album the most of that time, and I like this Tony Martin album the best.
Right. Yeah, for Dio, like, I'd have to go with Dehumanizer, and for Tony Martin, I cannot decide between Headless Cross and Tear. But with Tear, I like...
help you with that. It's Headless Cross.
With Tear, I love... See, I think you're right, because with Headless Cross, I love Headless Cross more musically and in terms of vocal melodies. But I think what I love about Tear is the lyrical content. Like the Norse mythology shit. But I love, yeah, I think I'd have to agree. I think it is Headless Cross. Because, like, as a package deal, that is the better album to me.
I mean, you can say what you want about the lyrics of Tear being better, but the line, "There's no escaping the power of Satan," doesn't appear on Tear. It's on the Headless Cross.
Yeah, I remember reading a Tony Iommi interview about the lyrics for Headless Cross, and, you know, he criticized Tony Martin and said, well, when Tony Martin joined the band, he thought we were all about Satan because of the band name, so he just wrote all these fucking songs about Satan. and we were like, well, you need to tone it down. So I guess that's why when Tear came out, he switched it to Norse mythology, because Tony Iommi said, we're not a satanic band, can you please tone this down?
I mean, Tear's a fucking great album, though. Like,
right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It is so fucking good.
Yeah.
It's like one of the Sabbath albums I need on vinyl, and I can get, but I have to pay a lot of money to get it.
Yeah, you have to pay a shit ton of money. I've asked Rob Bork from Music Matters about it a bunch of times. He's had it on back order for a long time. But yeah, so anywhere, like Discogs, like any source, ton of money.
Yeah. I get an email from Discogs every day telling me, we found one for €80, and it's like, no.
Right.
That's before shipping.
Not too long ago, I got a double gatefold of Dehumanizer new, and I think I paid like $62 for it. But I needed a new copy of that on vinyl. Like, it had to be brand new, and like I debated about even opening it because it's my favorite Sabbath record, so I just needed to have it. But yeah, I definitely dropped at least $62 on that, and I'm sure Headless Cross would be way more.
I got real lucky on my honeymoon. I was in Toronto.
Yeah.
Some fucking like random store. I can't think of it. It's like in that like hip district of Toronto. And this guy just had a couple boxes of records, and the Headless Cross was there.
Nice.
I got it like for something like $5 Canadian. I was like so stoked. I was like, I can't believe I'm fucking getting this right now.
Right. Yep. That's amazing. That's
yeah,
really
that
cool.
That was like an amazing find for me. But you know, again, not everybody really. It's like if you look for it online, the people who have it probably all are more aware. You know.
Yeah, that's the universe speaking to you, man. That's the planets aligning and the universe saying you need to own this record. You need to own this record by the power of Satan, and you need it for $5 Canadian.
Yeah.
Shit. This guy, he just keeps writing songs about Satan.
I love that.
All right. Well, I'm good if you are. This was a great talk once again. It's always a pleasure. And, yeah, I just looking at the schedule, I think it's Dehumanizer. Yeah, fucking that's me for you. Awkward silence again. So, Bill Page. Dun, 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 dun. Really? This doesn't make any sense. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. I forgot the order of the studio albums for a moment, and it didn't make any sense to me for a second. But yeah,
so the deal leaving and then him coming back.
Yeah, exactly. There's a huge gap there. So yeah, the next time you'll be on, if you're still down, is for Seventh Star.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely down.
Yeah, so for you, Seventh Star, Headless Cross, Tear, Dehumanizer, and Forbidden, and if you're down, Devil You Know, Heaven and Hell.
Oh yeah, I'm down for whatever. Like I said, I love talking about Black Sabbath.
Right.
It's anybody who'll listen, I'm fucking ready to talk about Black Sabbath.
Hell yeah.
Just wait till you hear Ron the Oppressor cover Never Say Die.
Oh, is that a real thing? Is that a thing?
Okay, we talk about it. We've never actually started working on it, but I don't want this to sound like I'm slagging anybody, because I'm not. But nowadays there's the whole stoner metal scene.
Sure.
Everybody just loves the heavy, slow Black Sabbath, which I get. I'm not knocking it at all, but there's more. Like, sometimes we'll just talk about how there's more to Black Sabbath than that.
Right.
And there's no better example than Never Say Die.
Sure. No,
when he says we're gonna play a show, we're just gonna come out and do Never Say Die and be like, yeah, that was a Black Sabbath.
How would you sing that in your traditional, like, hardcore yell style, or would you try to do some singing?
I'd probably do it like what I do with Ron the Oppressor. I can't sing.
Well, whatever, as long as you're belting it out. I mean, that is the perfect song for a hardcore band to cover.
That's what we think too. At least
that's the song. If you're gonna pick any Sabbath song as a hardcore band to cover, it's gotta be Never Say Die.
Well, honestly, I think Paranoid would work too, but Paranoid's just been so overdone. It's like the last Sabbath song I would ever want to play.
Yeah, that's true. And that was the one that they wrote hastily, I think, when the label wanted them to add a song.
Yeah.
So they were like, go to the bar. We're going to go to the bar. You write this riff, and when we come back, have a song ready, Yeah.
I mean, it's a great song, don't get me wrong, but it's like, it's like everybody does Paranoid.
Yes, indeed.
So
or like War Pigs, or, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
And people have done them, like, great. Like, like you want to do War Pigs. Are you going to really beat, like, the Faith No More version?
Sure. There's a band, I think it's either Nuclear Winter or it's the Scarecrow Show. A band from around here, and they do an amazing cover of War Pigs. And they add their own quick little, shreddy guitar licks in there that are their own. They put like an original spin on it, and it's really cool to hear. But like you said, it's just like Paranoid. These are the songs that everybody covers. So
yeah. Speaking about War Pigs and Black Sabbath for a minute, though, have you ever listened to the band? It's not a band. It's a DJ, Girl Talk.
Nope.
Because he does all mashups. And back in 2010, he did an album called All Day, where it starts off with War Pigs.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't. he doesn't do straight songs. He mixes mostly like different alternative songs and stuff with hip hop artists. And fuck, I can't think of what the guy's name is. I'm trying to look it up. He does it like, it starts off with War Pigs and even goes into the vocals, and then it just goes into this awesome hip hop part. I'm trying, and I feel so dumb because I know who this person is, but I just gotta look up their name because I'm forgetting it for a minute. Shit. But it's a banger. It's so fucking good. The way this like rap art, like the guy just starts rapping between all this. It's like, you know, the song people would probably know. It's like, get out the way, bitch, get out the way.
Yeah.
And it's like he's like doing that part in the middle of all. You know, it's like he sings like they do the Ozzy line, and then he does the get out the way, bitch, get out the way. And it works so well.
You know, now that I think I've heard this. Just off that description, I think I've heard this.
And it's like Girl Talk, like he's done some other stuff. Like people would go see him live. I never really took the whole, even though I think it takes skill to do mashup stuff. When people start referring to those people as geniuses, I'm always kind of like, well, they're really just putting out the songs you already know together. But that Girl Talk album, and it starts with Black Sabbath, is fucking genius.
Sure. Because you're not always going to conceive. Yeah, you're not always going to conceive. You can sit back and say, oh, doing mashups is easy. But you're not going to conceive what these people mash up. Like, every idea that comes across, you know, someone's mind. And then you hear something like that, and like you said, like, all of a sudden, there's a mashup that you consider genius, you know?
Yeah.
So, no, I think that's great. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to check that out, and I'm going to check out Bill Ward's solo stuff. And I still...
check out the Trouble albums?
Yeah, Bill Ward solo stuff. And I still have to check out Trouble.
Oh, yeah, you do, man. You're going to really be like, fuck, I've been cheating myself.
Yep.
Listen to the self-titled Trouble album on Def Jam.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, man, what am I doing? What have I been doing with my life?
I know. So much amazing shit out there that I've been sleeping on and, you know, probably continue to sleep on until I have another conversation like this with somebody. So
the interesting thing about Trouble, though, because the album I'm specifically referring to came out in like around the time the Headless Cross came out.
Yeah.
And Trouble, though, is a complete Christian band.
Okay.
Especially on that album, and all their other albums too, but really on that one, they're just singing about God.
Yep.
And it's really quite interesting since they're like so heavily Sabbath influenced.
Right. And it's like, the heavy Sabbath too, right? It's the classic heavy Sabbath you said that they've sounded.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like the classic heavy Sabbath, and they're just singing like. They're singing about God and how you need to find Jesus.
Well, you know what? Maybe I'll like it more than for the contrast.
Yeah. I mean, they don't do it. It's not corny though, but more or less that's what they're saying.
Oh no, I've heard a ton of Christian bands that I get behind just because they're so fucking good. Like there's a heavier like hardcore band. You know, they remind me of Converge a little bit. They're called Mortal Treason, and they're just super heavy and drop tune dissonant chords, fucking the crazy like Converge style like Jane Doe like harsh vocals and stuff like that. Like really cool band, and like you'd never know. You would never know like how churchy it is.
You know what's funny about that? That speaking about Christian hardcore just reminded me of the rapper that gets mixed in there. It's Ludacris. And the reason I remember that is because there's a rapper Ludacris. Yes. And then there used to be a Christian hardcore band called Ludacris.
Yes.
With like L-U-T-I, and they became Norma Jean.
Yeah. Were they on Solid State?
I think so.
Yeah, I remember that. And another one from that label I think is Demon Hunter. who I also like, or did like at a time anyway.
Man.
Well, yeah. So you got anything else? Where does this leave us?
I don't know. We haven't addressed Striper yet. We're talking about Christian rock, so we're just talking to that
maybe that'll be a different podcast. Maybe we'll analyze their discography.
That you have to do with Mike Jeffers, one of Mike Jeffers' favorite bands.
Okay. Well, thanks for the tip. That does make way more sense. All right. Well,
All right, thanks, Mike.
As usual, this was fun and educational for me. All right. You enjoy the rest of your night. I'll tag you when this is up, and we'll talk about Seventh Star when the time comes.
Awesome. Can't wait.
All right.
Talk to you later.
See you, man.
See ya.
Bye.